Hello and welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Patholkus, and this is Doom Patrol Season 1, Episode 14, Penultimate Patrol, because this is the penultimate episode. Um, yeah, some very self-aware characters, which I thought was pretty damn funny. Before I get started here, of course, I'm gonna say spoiler alert because I'm probably gonna drop a ton of spoilers. Well, yeah, obviously I am because I'm gonna spoil the whole damn episode. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. Come on back. This will be a video. You can comment down below in the comment section. So, some good stuff again. This is some really good stuff. And some good quotes too. I love some of the lines that we had there. So yeah, we start off in Chicago, 1946, and I love how the newspaper headline reads that the Brotherhood of Evil is threatening the city. And we see this woman sitting in a restaurant, and in walks Mr. Nobody in his human form, of course, because that's when he was still human. And it's Mr. Morden, is what his name is, and she asks him how did it go, with his pitch to the Brotherhood of Evil, and he says, "Not very well. In fact, I got fired." Is what he says. She goes, "Didn't you tell him about, all these different things that, he had?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "And the brain wasn't having it. He didn't like it at all." And says, "I don't have it. I don't have any zip to me." So they fired me and replaced me with a gorilla, and I believe he speaks French. Is which I thought was pretty damn funny. And he goes, "But I'll get back up on top. Everything will be good." And she goes, "That's the whole thing. You've never been on top. You've, always had these grandiose ideas that have never gone anywhere. You're Mr. Nobody," is what she tells him. And she leaves him. So that's where he gets his name from, is from a spurned woman, Mr. Nobody. And then we see the gang, of course, traveling to the location that Grid had found the beard hunter at. He's been in the same location for at least a week, maybe a little bit more. And Flex, of course, is sitting in the back of the bus, blaming himself for Dolores's death. And Larry's saying, "No, it's not. It's not her fault. It was the Bureau's fault. Blame them. Once we get Chief back, then we'll help put those bastards out of business," is what he says. Basically trying to talk him down. And suddenly, Cliff, he's driving and he says, "Well, what the fuck is that? There's a street right in the middle of nowhere, and what is that?" And Larry says, "Oh, that's Danny. That's Danny the street. Didn't I tell you about, Danny?" And he goes over very quickly the genderqueer thing. This is when Jane was getting married. And Jane says, "You need to share a little bit more," which I thought was pretty damn funny because we've heard about this quite often enough. So they get out, of course, to go and talk to Danny. And yes, I was happy to see Danny too. I love getting a little bit more Danny time there. And Flex actually knows Danny. And Danny actually asks how Dolores is. And, Flex breaks the bad news that Dolores is gone. And Danny's very sorry, of course. And um, they see Ernest, the beard hunter, and he's been living there on Danny. And yeah, they go and grab him, and Jane turns into Hammerhead. Hammerhead comes out, and Rita's like, not having any of it. She's asking, "Where the hell's Chief? You were supposed to find Chief." And she says, "Hammerhead, do something until he tells us where Chief is." So Hammerhead rips his bag open, his little grocery bag, and pulls out some bananas and goes, "See these things? They're going up your ass one at a time, not peeled, with the peel on." How did Ernest get there? Yeah, that's a good question, Pen Farm Girl, because where we saw him last was not that same place. Yes, Pube Stalker, exactly. And Danny interrupts and says, "I know where Niles is." And Larry says, "Well, why didn't you tell me last time I was here?" It's because I'm afraid of Mr. Nobody, of course. And Rita says, "Can you just tell us where he is? We've crossed two continents and even went up a donkey's mustn't touch it." Which I laughed. I actually had to rewind that a couple times because it was making me laugh. A donkey's mustn't touch it. And they say Danny tells them that that Niles is in the white space, and they're like, "What the hell's the white space?" And Flex knows how to get there. Flex knows how to get to the white space. In the meantime, we see Vic. He's sleeping next to his dad's bed there, and he's having dreams, having some very bad dreams. And he wakes up, and he wakes up to his dad being awake at this point. Um, cut back over, and Flex is explaining the white space and what it is. And what the white space is, he's using a comic book for example, because of course this is a live action comic book, and says the white space exists where content doesn't exist. You go see these panels, the white space is the everything outside of those panels. That is where they're at, where things do not exist. And yes, I thought that was a brilliant example as well, Viking Bitch, of them explaining this. And so the gang talk about how to, what are they going to do when they get there? They weren't able to defeat Mr. Nobody last time, and he basically separated them all, used their past against them to torture them, and they're arguing back and forth about how they're going to do it. And finally, Cliff's like, "Enough! We're just going to do it. We're going to go. We're going to get shit done. We're going to go to the white space now, all of us together." And he links hands, and Flex says, "Okay, I'm going to flex this muscle. I know how to get there." He goes, "Everyone concentrate on the white space." So everyone's concentrating, and like, "Okay, we're supposed to feel something," and they all start moaning a little bit, and like, "Oh my god, I feel something." And Cliff's like, "What? What? I don't feel anything." And everybody on Danny the street there, everyone in the area starts having orgasms because of Flex. And Cliff, of course, uh, starts pretending that he has an orgasm as well, and it turns out that he flexed the wrong muscle is what happened, and he's very, very sorry. He goes, "But they're very close together, these two muscles," and he was going for the splenius capitis, but he accidentally flexed the splenius cervicus, which completely on accident. And it was a very long orgasm. I think it was like about a minute and a half, something like that, that was going on, which I thought was pretty damn funny. Yes, and even Danny had an orgasm too. We saw the hydrant pop at one point and cover people with water. Oh man. Yeah. This show, I mean, just when you think that you've seen it all, and then it just kind of pops something else in, and you're like, holy shit. Okay. All right. So you can go even a little further here. So Vic is with his dad in the hospital again, and Silas says that he's seen that Vic has reinstalled Grid, and Vic says that he screwed everything up, and that Mr. Nobody basically used, got inside of his head and fucked with everything, and used his mistrust of his dad against him, and thinking that his memories weren't real and things like that. And Silas um, kind of learns now that Vic didn't trust him. He goes, "What? You didn't trust me?" He's like, "Yeah, I didn't." And then he goes, "Well, you had a right to not trust me. Some of your memories aren't real," is what he tells them. It's like, oh shit, here we go. Now we're gonna go down the rabbit hole. So Jane ends up asking Cliff if he faked an orgasm. He's like, "What? No." And she goes, "You were kind of writhing along with the rest of us, but you can't feel anything." He goes, "All right, I did it just to fit in, okay?" So yeah. So again, they're asked to focus on the white space. And instead of getting taken to the white space, they all get taken back to the memories that they all had just before they all get changed. So for Cliff, it was the night that before the accident. Uh, for Larry, of course, the night before the crash. For Rita, just before she's going to do the scene that she ends up in the water. And Jane, we find out how Jane got her powers this time around too. They snuck this one in, is that she was in the asylum and got a spike in the back of her neck that boosted everyone's powers. They had little powers to begin with, all the personalities, but this spike in the back of her neck is what boosted everything to where she's at currently, which I thought was interesting. And Mr. Nobody is also narrating over them as well. They can all hear him narrating. and they're all kind of pissed off at this point. And it, it's pretty funny actually. And he says they can all have their lives back and live in this memory, basically live in these memories. He actually slips there and tells them that it's memories, that it's not real. And as long as they just back off and don't look for Niles anymore. So yeah. And they say, they all of them at one point, and I think they can all hear each other as well. And they're saying that they've changed since the last time that he's met them. And he goes, "Oh, really?" And so we see Larry's wife tell him to go and that they'll be watching. Cliff fucking the nanny again, but he's saying it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. Um, and Rita realizes that she was a monster even before she became a real physical monster. So, because she had the director of photography fired, mainly because he was black, but also because she was saying that his arm was creeping her out. He was missing an arm, and yeah, so yeah, Rita does step up this episode too, a bit. She actually takes ownership of what the shitty shit that she has done. Um, and they all call Mr. Nobody on his bullshit, and basically they're saying, "Yeah, no, we're not staying here. Fuck this," except for Jane. Jane keeps having a fight with Hammerhead. Hammerhead keeps going back, and she's like, fuck this. This is where we got our liberation. This is where we got our power. And Jane's like, no, we can change everything. This is where we should just stay where we are, not getting the, spike in the back of our neck, that kind of thing. And Hammerhead comes out and says something very cryptic and says, we're supposed to protect the girl. That's all we get, is we're supposed to protect the girl. Now, I don't know if that means, Kay, who is the original little girl of all of this that, she started off as, or if it's some other little girl. We might know later on. Who knows at this point? So, yeah. So, in the meantime, Silas is telling Vic that, what do you remember of the accident? And Vic says, "Hey, I woke up on the lawn with mom. Mom was still alive." And he says, "No, that's wrong. She was dying too." Um, that he woke up on the lawn and mom was dead. And he goes, "No, she was still alive." He goes, "We took you both to Star Labs to operate on you." He goes, "But I can only save one of you." And he goes, "Well, how did you decide?" And he says, "That was Niles. Niles basically made the argument that you were stronger, you'd be able to accept the nanites. And also, I realized that that's what she would have wanted. She would have wanted you to survive. If I had saved her instead of you, it would have been a mistake." And Silas also says he was afraid that the truth of all of this, that he let his mom die, would turn Vic against him, when actually he didn't realize that all this time that Vic's been shouldering her death as his burden this entire time. And he's kind of pissed at his dad, or not kind of, he is pissed at his dad about this. And he's like, "You know what?" He goes, I got to leave. He goes, "I got to go find people that I actually trust to go and help them." And he leaves his dad, and his dad's crying, of course. And so we see, yeah, exactly, more acting from Phil Morris, exactly. I love Mr. Nobody's voiceover. Then at this point, they're all wandering through the white space alone, and he says, "Now they were lost and alone, and only my narration to keep them company, most likely forever." And that's where Rita just gets pissed off, and she's like, "Fuck this." She goes, "I'm taking control of the narration." And so she starts narrating her own narration, which pisses off Mr. Nobody. He goes, "Wait a minute, you can't do that." And she goes, "I can do anything I want." And so she basically says that they end up fighting each other, and everyone finds each other except for Jane. They don't know where Jane is, and they find Chief as well. And Mr. Nobody shows up and says, "You know what? You're not taking Chief. You're going to have to go through me first." And Cliff, of course, is just ready to fight when who comes up but Jane as Dr. Harrison. And Dr. Harrison starts to analyze Mr. Nobody, which I thought was awesome. And he slips. He actually slips a little bit and lets Millie come forth as a vision. And they're like, "Oh, all this is because of some girl, some woman who dumped you?" And then like, and then Cliff's like, I don't want to fight now. He goes, I kind of find, I'm kind of find you pathetic. I pity you. And they're like, yeah, I don't want to fight you either. Why don't you come on over and let, Dr. Niles Calder into your heart a little bit. Yeah. So basic, so sad. I'm not basic. And, Niles, of course, also getting in on it too, going, you wanted to be different, but you're not. That whole ganging up on him, which was awesome. And he says, "You know what?" He goes, "You don't have to fight." He goes, "I'm gonna rip you apart." And he turns back into the Mr. Nobody that we've seen because he keeps going back and forth between his human form with the director's pants and then to the Mr. Nobody, the CGI'd Mr. Nobody. And he goes, "I'm gonna rip you apart." He goes, you can't pity me." And all of a sudden we see, we hear a shot and we see a red spot on his chest, and all of a sudden he pixelates and disappears. And we see Cyborg standing behind him. And Cyborg says, "Well, he told us not to pity him." And they're like, "All right, that's it? I guess so. So, Chief, you ready to go home?" So they go home. And we see Chief calling a 7 a.m. meeting. And of course, everyone's late to the meeting. And Larry's got breakfast. He's got pancakes and bacon and a whole bunch of that stuff. But before they can have breakfast, the alarm blares, starts going off. And they're like, "Oh, guess we got to go and do that." So they drive in the truck over to this park, and we see this giant robot walking along through the park. And this is the robot that Mr. Nobody or Mr. Morden had shown Millie. It was an idea of his that he was presenting to the Brotherhood of Evil, to create fear. So we know it's Mr. Nobody's robot. We've seen this already. And of course, the group goes out to go and face it. And they're like, I don't know, this is a robot. Cliff goes, wait a minute, I speak robot. Let me ask, hey, buddy, friend or foe? And the robot, of course, rips out the tree and throws it at him. He goes, foe as fuck," is what he says. And they're going to take it on. And what happens? The robot has these beams that come out of its eyes and just incinerates them. Chief screams out, no. And then we start all over again. We go back to the hallway and all this stuff. Only this time they get stepped on by the robot. And then comes a montage sequence of them getting killed and also meeting in the hallway, killed, meeting in the hallway. And a couple of times, Chief kind of stops it, but then doesn't, and doesn't know what to do. And then he finally uh he stops him and goes, wait, stop. He goes, if you go out there, you're gonna die. And at this point, we see another cyborg down the hallway. And they're like, "What? Who is that? Who's that?" They're going back and forth. And Mr. Nobody's like, "Finally." And he sheds his cyborg disguise and he goes, "I was the one who shot myself on that. I was pretending to be cyborg." And he goes, "This was getting boring and repetitive anyway at this point. And you're all still trapped in here with me. You can't kill me," is what he says. "You never were able to kill me." And he goes, "But there is one way you can leave." He goes, "You can leave. All of you can leave if Niles just tells the truth." And Niles is like, I can't tell the truth." And the group is like, "Come on, you can tell us, Nile. Everything's good. Just tell us the truth. Tell us what, the secret that you have." And Niles finally says, "Your accidents weren't accidents. I caused them all. So everything that changed you into what you are is because of me." And that's where we leave off the episode. And I was like, "Holy shit!" They finally actually went there. I was good. I was kind of wondering if they were going to do evil Dr. Niles Calder, and they did. They kind of worked it in. Um, Kudos to them, man. I mean, this is more in one fucking season than we get in 15 seasons of other shows, quite honestly. And really good acting, really good writing, great dialogue, great villain as well. And just great characters, even the side characters, Danny the Street, Flex Mentallo, the original Doom Patrol. You name it, we've got it. And they even ran down a little bit of the crazy shit that they've gone through, over the season as well. I'm fairly sure Penn Farm Girl, they're gonna give us another season. If they gave Titans a second season, This one's definitely getting a season because it's getting all kinds of buzz. It has been written up in Vanity Fair, for God's sake. If it's been written up in Vanity Fair, I'm pretty sure that that is. You stole my line, Dennis. Which one about that Titans? If Titans got another season, that they should. Yeah, I am 99% sure that they're going to get another season. But then again, I was the same thing about the Tick too, and look what happened there. No, actually, I was about 80% on the Tick. So there we go. Yeah, I mean, great episode. I'm wondering what they're going to do for the finale, for the season finale, because uh, you drop a bomb like that on the penultimate episode, and how are you going to clean up that mess? He wasn't there, of course. Cyborgs was the only accident that he wasn't involved in, or was he? That we don't know of either. He might have been involved in Cyborg's accident, which makes it even more diabolical that he was there talking to Silas to basically whisper in his ear and say, "Save Vic," over his mom, which is even more fucked up when you think about it, you know? Yeah, so Niles playing God, if you will. And I'm wondering if it has anything to do with if he can see the future or anything like that and needs them to be the team that he needs them to be, or what. Joe Greer says Phil Morris mentioned Niles during the talk in the hospital. Yeah, no, that's why I talked about that. And so yeah, Niles was the reason why Vic received the nanites and not his mom. The looks on all the faces as the knowledge was sinking in that Niles did this on purpose. Yeah. I mean, especially Cliff, man. I mean, Cliff got it the worst of all. He's a fucking brain in a box, is really what he is. He's a brain in a box. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know where they're going with this, quite honestly. And I'm delighted that I don't know where they're going with this, to tell you the truth, because that is what you want out of a show. You want something that's not predictable, that is going to entertain you, that is also going to leave you guessing as to what's going to come next. That are all, those are all the earmarks of a really good show. Um, Penn Farm Girls says, but they already admitted they were fucked up before their accidents. Yeah, they were all people that were damaged people. They were damaged on the inside, and Niles pretty much damaged them on the outside to match their insides. But now they are kind of healing on the inside as well. That's what this whole season has been about. Is about them. Like I said last episode, this is all about them healing on the inside so they can become the team that they need to be. And Viking Bitch says, yes, I want a show that is smart. It makes me wonder when I know what is going to happen before it does. It's boring. Exactly. You've seen all that shit before. We've all seen that before. As Mr. Nobody said, we've all seen this kind of shit before. And I agree with him. This is stuff that is new. Well, new to TV, I should say. It's not new to comics, it's new to TV. And it's about time we were getting this kind of stuff on TV, quite honestly. I'm sure Niles will use the fact that they are bad people to justify what he did to them. I don't know if he's going to go that route, to tell you the truth, Viking Bitch. I think he's just going to justify, he's going to say the ends justify the means, and he's going to give a reason for it. And it's going to be for the greater good. The greater good. Yes. Viking Bitch says, I love Legion because I can't predict it. Yeah, no one can, because that's Noah Hawley. Noah Hawley is genius. So I just wish we were getting more than 3 seasons of that one as well. Yep, the greater good. It's always the greater good. Remember, Future Man. I go by Future Man rules on this one. It's for the greater good. When is the return date for Legion? It's in June. I don't remember when, Joe Greer. I think it's in the 20s or something like that, of June. I have to look it up. I can't remember offhand, but I will be covering it. I mean, hell yeah, that's the third and final season of Legion. I'm definitely covering that. Um, You can bet your bottom dollar on that one. So, if you like what you see here, hit the subscribe button. Also, hit the like button. If you don't like what you see, you can hit the dislike button. I just asked you go down in the comments section and tell me what it is you don't like. Give me some constructive criticism about what it is that you find dislikeful about this episode or my channel, if for that matter. You can also hit the bell if you want to know when I'm going to be on next. That's notifications. If you already hit the bell, don't hit it again. It will unclick it. You can go into the bell itself, the settings, and get as much or as little notifications as you want. June 24th, Legion comes back. There we go. I knew it was June 20 something. I couldn't remember what it was. Hey, who didn't hit the like? Pen Farm Girl says there's some people that don't, they hit the dislike button, especially for the Game of Thrones one. It's just because, people don't, didn't like the episode or something, or didn't like that I do a recap of it before I actually start getting into things. So there we go. But if you want to see when I'm going to be on, I changed the time on this one by half an hour. I was supposed to do it at 6:30. I shifted it over to 7 because I was a little bit late with some stuff. So you can see that schedule up on suspendedfanimation.com. It's also up on my Facebook page as well. If I'm going to do time changes, I will do time changes there, as I did today. I actually knew I was going to be late. I went in, I changed it over to 7 o'clock on both of those places so that people could see that. Let's see. Tomorrow, Saturday, is going to be Saturday Morning Blast Off, where I take the genre news of the week, talk about that, as well as any genre related stuff that you guys want to talk about that I may or may not have an inkling of. On Sunday is the last episode ever of Game of Thrones, unless the whiny fan babies get their way and they remake season 8 somehow. Very doubtful that's going to happen. Monday, I'm going to be covering the second season of The Tick, which is now its final season, but I'm still going to be finishing out that whole season too. Tuesdays, I'm off. Wednesday is Happy. Thursday is the revived iZombie, thankfully. And Friday, of course, we're going to be covering the final episode of Doom Patrol. And that will roll over into Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing starts on the 31st. There we go. Yeah. So, I also have a Twitter, I also have an Instagram, and I also have a Patreon. The Patreon does not have tiers set up as of yet because I don't know exactly what I want to do for the tiers just at the moment. I am working on it, so it will get done at some point in time. It's up. You can go take a look. There is one post, and there we go. Viking Bitch says, "Ugh, I can't wait for Game of Thrones to be over. I have to watch it because I have come this far, but I'm not enjoying it." Yeah, um, me too. At this point, it's got one episode left. People take it too seriously, like 80s wrestling. Exactly, Joker. Um, there are way too many people out there now that take their fantasy and stuff just way too seriously. And it's like, it's a movie, it's a TV show. Yeah, okay, I get it. You're a fan of the books that haven't finished, that even haven't even gotten this far. This is one take on it. You still have books that you can go back to and you can use that as your basis. I don't know. Hiking Bitch has gifted us $100 on Patreon, and he'll give. No, I will not do a private hangout. Not yet, because it'll be awkward and me just sitting there staring at you. Pen Farm Girl says, I want George to finish the books and give us the real ending, but I don't expect him to. Yeah, I really don't think George cares, to tell you the truth. He is off doing his own little thing. He's more interested in wild cards, that first series that he did, which was a horrible series. I stumbled across that book in a bookstore years ago, and I read it. I read it from cover to cover, and I was like, wow, that was a fucking horrible story. Little did I know that this guy would be this famous writing some other fantasy stuff. Night Flyers, I haven't. Night Flyers is canceled, Joker, and for good reason. It was boring as fuck. It was kind of just a little bit more exciting than The Passage. That's all it was. A tiny bit more exciting than the Passage TV show. And we all know where that ended up. Oh, that one's canceled too. That's right. There's been a lot of cancellations. I was reading someplace a couple days ago that they think they said there was 107 cancellations that happened so far this season, which is that's a lot of fucking cancellations. Penn Farm Girl says I read Fever Dream, which was a solid book by George. It was supposed to have 2 sequels that we'll never get. Exactly. Yeah, he's good at doing that, where he will write a story and then kind of abandon it to do other things because that's who he is. I mean, quite honestly, I don't think you would have gotten the last book of Game of Thrones if it wasn't for HBO kind of hounding him. That was, pretty much it. Yeah. And Joker, you didn't miss anything by missing the passage. It wasn't worth it. So, well, I'm looking forward to next week to find out what happens to the gang here and what exactly the hell Niles did and why he did it. So we can, find this stuff out finally. And then also, what the fuck is up with the painting? What the fuck? You know? Is it actually something that's going to happen, or is it just something that came out of the donkey's ass? Maybe a cliffhanger? Cliff hanger? Get it? Cliff. Okay, yeah, that's a bad one. I hope it's not a cliffhanger, Joker. I hope we get some. What I would like to see is that they kind of resolve some stuff and get into the team aspect, or they were now a team at the end of the season, and so that we can go into the new season with a team, a superhero team, and just have it, you know, move forward from there. As Mr. Nobody says, finally we get what we wanted, a superhero show. Yeah. But a smart superhero show. That's what I want. Yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here? I'm going to scroll up just a little bit, see what else people are saying. Actually, I was reading a lot of this stuff as we were going through anyway. Viking Bitch says, I love the twist of all the characters thinking they defeated Mr. Nobody. It was way too easy, and I kept waiting for something else to happen. Yeah, me too. You knew something was up, especially when the robot showed up and it looked exactly like, a Mr. Nobody's robot that he was showing Millie at the very beginning. Yeah. Oh, wow. You're talking about all kinds of stuff beforehand. Slurmy says a minute and a half orgasm brings back memories. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. I'm not going to say anything there. Thoughts on Supernatural ending? It's about time. And it was probably about 10 seasons too late. It should have ended at season 5, quite honestly. Don't get me wrong. I love the Ben Edlund stuff that happened. I love the Jeremy Carver stuff that happened. We wouldn't have gotten the Doom Patrol that we have right now if Jeremy Carver did not go through his supernatural years with Ben Edlund. So that's the other thing you can thank Ben Edlund for is this Doom Patrol, because of his work with Ben Edlund on the Supernatural show. I'm fairly sure it rubbed off on him and made him grow as a writer and as a producer and all of that. So, and I consider myself a huge Supernatural fan. I stuck through it to season 11, I believe is what it was, and I found like, yeah, no, tap out. I'm done. So, Viking Bitch says when Mr. Nobody said I control this streaming service, that made me, yeah, exactly. That was the other thing too. And then when Dr. Harrison says, "Oh, you control this TV show," I thought that was kind of interesting too. That some of Jane's personalities are just as aware as Mr. Nobody is about this being a TV show, which I thought was kind of interesting. So there's a couple other things that are buried in there. They buried a few little tidbits in this episode, and I don't think we're going to get the answers to them, of course. Yeah, great writing. Exactly, Joker. Great writing. And again, this all goes back to Grant, excuse me, Grant Morrison's writing that he did on the comic, which also was a little bit attributed to Alan Moore as well, because Alan Moore says, "Ah, you stole everything from me," but he says that about everybody. Yeah, I want 5 seasons of this too. I really do, Viking Bitch. This is a show that I would be happy with 5 seasons. Just planned out 5 seasons and say, okay, we're gonna go through a 5 season arc, then we're done, and just leave it at that. That would be the perfect amount, especially for this kind of craziness too. And they all don't have to be 15 episode seasons either. You can do 10 episode seasons. You can do a 12 episode season, something like that. I would be perfect. Perfect for that right there. That's the sweet spot usually is about 10 episodes. And I mean, this is 15 episodes this season, and not a single episode has been wasted. Not a single one. And that is rare in a TV show. Very, very rare. And usually you have a filler episode, you have something that's spinning its wheels to get to wherever they're going for the conclusion of the season. This one has not done that. This one has used every bit of real estate in it. And again, that is the mark of a good show and good writing, good producing, good overall show running of this. And again, I'm counting Jeremy Carver as one of those guys that I want to see, do show running more of bigger shows. Yes, even though the Beard Hunter was disgusting, it was necessary. Exactly, Viking Bitch. Brendan might deserve MVP for this season, Joker. Yeah, the voice work that he's done, and also the guy acting in the robot suit has been emoting really, really well, really well. Same thing for the guy who's in Larry's, raps. So well that they're doing this, and I mean, you get that look of defeat on Larry when you see the kind of the body movement or the slouching. Same thing with Cliff. When Cliff, at the very first episode, when we see him shut down, quite literally, and he's just sitting there in front of the window, just kind of slouched over. The guy in the suit sold that fucking performance, man. You felt that weight of Cliff just realizing that he was a brain in a box at this point and had nothing more to offer, or so he thought, and yeah, wow. It does take that kind of talent to show emotion through body language. It is very, very talented. And for those who say no, it doesn't, go and try and do it, man. Put a camera in front of yourself and go through a scene. Find some kind of scene in a movie or something like that. Find a script and try and do it without the words. Yeah, have someone else voice it over for you. Yeah. Good night, Slurmy. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this thing up here too. I know it's late for you guys out in the East Coast. And I also got to see how the Sharks, if they're beating the shit out of the Blues like they should be. I know the Blues were up there 2-0, but you know, I got to see if they did another hand pass, which actually wasn't a hand pass. But a lot of blind fans out there in St. Louis. That's all I can say. With that said, if you're still on the fence, take a look. There's gonna be a video up here, and the video, is gonna be taken from my video library. It's gonna take from your algorithm, see what you like, and pull the best video out of my video library to show up here. If you like what you see there, you can hit the subscribe button. That's gonna be up here. Under a minute left. Holy crap! Oh, and an empty net. Oh, okay. I guess they're losing. Oh well. Anyway, with that said, I'm going to let you guys go for the evening. Thank you to everybody who joined me in the chat. See you tomorrow morning for Saturday morning blast off. And don't forget to check out the video. Hit the subscribe button over here. And don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may find out that Dr. Niles Calder just kind of fucked with your life, but he did it for the greater good. Good night, everybody.